Okay, so this footnote is about a huge no excuses moment in my life. Quick content warning though, this story does involve a high risk pregnancy and loss, but with what I consider a happy ending.
All right.
You ready for this?
I am.
Okay. So I used to be a parkour instructor.
Okay. Surprising.
Well, you didn't know that.
Parkour.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, picture those scenes from The Office, and that's pretty much the level of my skill level. But anyway, so I met my partner, my spouse, through the parkour community, and I'm cutting a long story kind of short here, right? Actually, no, I don't need to, do I? I started parkour training when probably a year after I arrived in Australia, when I was living in Melbourne, and I just needed something to do that gave me a community, a social circle outside of my boyfriend's social circle at the time. Oh, he was horrible. But anyway, I found parkour Googling around for things to do in Melbourne, and just happened upon this parkour thing, and found out that there were parkour classes in Melbourne. Watched a couple of videos, and I was like, oh wow, that's really interesting. But I had zero coordination at the time. I had zero upper body strength. I was 28 when I started. Also a woman. So I was an overweight woman with no upper body strength, and I was much older than a lot of people who traditionally you see in these parkour videos, these young guys jumping across rooftops and shit, right?
People who haven't got a fear of injury yet.
Yeah. People whose brains haven't developed that self-preservation mechanism. And I'm just like, you boys could get hurt. But I decided to jump in and go to one of the first timers classes. And I'm skipping over a lot of stuff here, clearly. But I really struggled. I really struggled a couple of times. I was like, this is a joke. Why did I even try to do this? But I kept going back because I have this philosophy in life that anything worth trying once is worth trying twice. So I was like, okay, well, come back for attempt number 2 and see how it goes. And I just kept going back. I made it a habit because I was challenging myself, and I was like, this is teaching me something. This is really taking me out of my comfort zone. And so that's essentially what kept me going back. That, and the community was quite supportive and genuinely made me feel like they wanted me there.
That makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
When the community encourages you and doesn't make fun of you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
this community of like super fit young dudes who were like, no, you can scale that wall. You can do this, blah, blah, blah. And they never made me feel like it was going to be impossible.
Yeah. I've sometimes been pleasantly surprised by a lot of men that I otherwise find quite intimidating from a distance. I'm like, oh, they're going to look at me and judge me or not be queer accepting. You go to the gym and think places like that, and they're just like, nah, come on, like anyone can do it. Like this is accessible to anyone. Like really good attitudes. And so it's really an important lesson in not judging a book by their cover.
Yeah, for sure. So as I kept coming back, as I kept pushing myself and challenging myself to do these things that seemed increasingly ridiculous, I became a part of a community, and my effort was rewarded by that community, by that sense of belonging, which was beautiful. Kept practicing, kept improving little by little, and I mean little by little, and eventually became an instructor. Every year, the Australian Parkour Association has a national gathering in a different city in Australia, and practitioners from all over the country, like, converge on this one city. And in 2012, the national gathering was held in Townsville.
Oh, wow.
Pretty random, right?
I guess you just want to experience the urban landscape of non-urban places.
Yeah, well, it was Townsville and Magnetic Island. Yeah, so we did a lot of training out in nature, which is really where the origins of parkour are.
Really?
But that's a whole other story.
Okay.
Yeah, out in the jungles of Dalat and things like that.
Love to know more about it another time.
And it was during that trip that I met my partner, Tony, who was one of the organizers of that event.
How adorable.
I know.
I have to say, I've mostly met people through mutual interests.
Yeah. And Tony was one of those people who I had only recognized as the hot guy who was in a bunch of my friends' Facebook pictures. And this is when Tony was identifying just strictly as male. And I spent a bunch of time with Tony during the trip. We got to know each other really well. I still had this ridiculous boyfriend in Melbourne. Oh, he was awful.
I think we've all had one of those.
Yeah.
Just don't stop making excuses for them.
Yeah. And we became quite close quite quickly during our time out on Magnetic Island. I flew back to Melbourne, back to the ridiculous relationship I was in, and a week later broke up with that boyfriend because I was like, I met this amazing person on this parkour trip. I had no thoughts that we were gonna end up together, but I had this realization that I was wasting my time languishing in this emotionally abusive relationship when there were people like Tony in the world.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to give myself a chance to find someone half as amazing as this Tony person. And
then
it wasn't
fast forward.
Yeah.
And now you have a beautiful little half Tony, half Leslie.
Yeah.
So cute.
I know.
Just want to eat her little cheeks up.
Stay away from my daughter. So Tony and I ended up together. And we're still together to this day. We got engaged 5 months into a long-distance relationship.
Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That is some commitment.
Yeah, because I went back to Melbourne. No, I was already I wasn't a citizen. I was a permanent resident already.
Okay. Just love.
Just love. Just love.
So romantic.
Yeah, because I was in Melbourne while they were based in Brisbane. And we flew back and forth a couple of times, but then we got married in May of 2014. So engaged 5 months in, married that next year.
So you probably just about to hit your 10-year together-versary and 10-year anniversary soon?
Yes.
Like 10-year marriage anniversary.
Yes.
So cute.
So we got married. Sometime after that, started trying for a baby. That was a huge struggle. It was not a third time lucky situation for us. It was not a fourth time lucky situation for us.
Oof.
It was a fifth time lucky situation for us.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
It's a difficult time for anyone.
Yeah. So it was just tragedy after tragedy after tragedy.
Yeah.
And then we got a bub that stuck.
Yes.
She just would not quit. She was kicking. She was, she had me in and out of hospital because I had a very high risk pregnancy because of my history of losses, because of a few things. So it was just 9 months of sheer anxiety.
I bet.
So it was a very challenging pregnancy. By the time I got to the labor and delivery segment, I knew that was going to be the easy part because I had been through hell by that point.
And knowing that, like, she was so close to the home run of safety too, like, once they're out and breathing and you've got a bit of, you're like, there's so much more certain, like, you feel like you can settle down a bit about the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital. I had a mental health birth plan in place set up by one of the mental health nurses on the staff.
That's amazing.
I had arrangements to be put into a private room after the birth, where Tony was officially listed as a support person, so they could stay overnight.
Oh yeah.
And like the hospital, this is Royal Brisbane Hospital, they took very, very, very good care of me.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
It's where I was born also.
Ooh, so you've got something in common.
We do.
Initially, there were a lot of fears that the little one was going to come out of my body way too soon. I had to get a surgical procedure done to make sure she didn't.
Wow.
Yeah, they had to stitch my cervix closed, essentially.
Yeah.
Because she just did not want to stay put.
Yeah.
So even that last couple of months was a terrifying period of just hoping and hoping and hoping that she would stay in my body long enough, as close to full term as possible.
Yeah.
Right? So then, in a strange twist of fate, at 39 and a half weeks, I had to be induced.
Okay. Why was...
And then... Oh. She didn't want to come out.
Of course.
She didn't want to come out.
Contrary.
They did everything that they could to get this child out of my body. Short of a C-section. Because she just didn't want to come out. Yep. But at one point, when my waters finally did break, I was lying there. I was hopped up on all the happy drugs. My goodness, that epidural. Oh, I wish I had a take-home kit. At the time, we were preparing... I mentioned the national parkour gatherings. That year, we were hosting in Brisbane, and I was one of the key organizers.
Oh.
Yeah.
While pregnant.
Well, yes.
I guess organizing.
Yeah.
You're not doing parkour.
No.
Duh.
So I was one of the key organizers.
She was doing parkour inside you.
Oh, she very much was, and I have video evidence of that. We were organizing our meetings on Skype at the time. We had a lot of meetings up until that point, and at the time that I was getting ready to deliver, we were 2 weeks out from the event. So we were preparing to have like 150 of our closest friends fly into Brisbane for this event, and I was like, this has to go well. We cannot mess this up. I will not have my name attached to something that is going to be half-assed, because I just cannot do anything half-assed. And I got a message from one of the other organizers. He's like, "Oh, is everyone up for the meeting tonight?" And I just flicked a text back saying, "Can't, in labor, sorry." And messages back saying, "Oh my gosh, oh wow, oh, that's exciting." And I thought, that's the perfect excuse to not rock up for this meeting, you would think, right?
Yeah.
But because I was all drugged up on happy juice, at that point, we were just waiting. We were just waiting for kiddo to decide to make her appearance.
Sounds like a boring, can't do anything, just waiting. Yeah.
We were just chilling, just enjoying our last hours as a couple. as a team of two before we suddenly sprouted.
Yeah.
And I turned to Tony at one point. I'm like, I want to jump on this Skype meeting because I had my computer, because of course I always have my computer nearby. And so I put my laptop up on the bed, opened it up, logged onto this meeting, and I was like, hey gang, how you doing? And there were some confused looks, like, what's going on? Aren't you in labor? I'm like, yeah, but I'm just waiting at this point. And waved hello to my friends. They met a couple of the staff who were going in and out of the room. And I'm like, all right, let's talk about this. What's happening? What are the last details that we need to finalize before we greet everyone? And we tied up all of our loose ends and...
Tied up a loose end and tied up an umbilical cord.
Something like that. We got done what we needed to get done and said goodbye on the meeting. I think it was still like a couple of hours after that Bub decided to finally make her grand entrance, giving me a 4th degree tear in the process. Yeah. All the way down.
Yeah, that's probably one of the things that just deterred me from ever wanting a baby inside of me. Just one, but one of many. We thank you all for your service.
Yes, you're welcome.
From the men to all the women and childbearing people out there, we thank you for your service.
Yes. And the lesson that I learned through that was that in other situations in my life where maybe I did have a perfect excuse to just not participate in something or not do something, when I just felt like I couldn't be bothered, when my chronic CBF started flaring up, I would just remind myself, like, I jumped on a Skype call while I was in labor. I can do anything.
Yeah. I guess it is.
And that was that.
It is important too, like those moments where you push through, you don't make the excuse. Those moments of strength are reinforced in you, and each time it becomes easier.
Yeah.
And so the first times it feels nearly impossible.
Yeah.
But you can do it, particularly with some support.
Yeah.
And then it just gets easier and easier every time.
Yeah. Because that story isn't even so much about jumping on a Skype call while I was in labor as it is about the persistence that I had to practice, even just to get to that point without losing my mind throughout that wild pregnancy. And the little bean inside my body, who they told me a number of times was potentially going to be not 5th time lucky, and she wouldn't quit.
Yeah.
She's like,
No, you're gonna be my mama.
I've noticed the stubbornness.
yeah. So she definitely inherited that stubbornness.
Yeah.
That's I'm claiming that that genetic backing for sure.
Yeah. I have to say in my life, like, some of the women who have, or people who've struggled with conception and losses, the persistence and the bravery from that, like, I don't know how they do it, how you do it. It has boggled my mind for a long time.
Yeah.
And so those children that come out of that, they're precious.
Yeah.
Spoiled, but precious.
Yeah. I don't know. Our brand of spoiling is more on the, like,
You can be wholesome about it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a bratty thing.
No.
My nephew is also very spoiled.
Yeah, I like to think of her more as just having a tremendously supportive network of people around her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My little side story to that is I was holding onto my uterus waiting for, because they were struggling with having children as well. And I was like, I'm not getting rid of it until I make sure that I'm not going to have, like, I was just like, I will be your surrogate and we will wait. And then my nephew came and he was a baby and I'm like, it's safe. I feel like we're past the dangers soon. We're good. We got one.
Wow.
And so I was just holding on for that, and I was so happy to have my hysterectomy. But I was like, no, we got have one. Like, it would have probably devastated my sister-in-law to not be able to carry, and like me being in the family and seeing it probably would have been incredibly emotionally draining. But thank goodness what they tried worked, and
Fantastic.
and fingers crossed for more.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
Thank you for sharing that story. It's a very vulnerable story, but beautiful. And thank you. I feel privileged to have been told it.
oh, thank you.